Batman has one of the most terrifying rogues galleries in all of fiction, from psychopaths who kill for fun, to immortal warlords with armies at their disposal, to secret societies that have controlled Gotham for over 400 years. Today, I'm ranking and explaining every major Batman villain from least dangerous to most dangerous. And trust me, the top of this list gets absolutely unhinged. Starting at the bottom, Killer Croc. Waylon Jones looks like he should be one of Batman's deadliest enemies. 8 feet tall, reptilian skin, superhuman strength, and a taste for human flesh. But here's the thing, he's not. Killer Croc first appeared in 1983 in Detective Comics number 523 as a cannibalistic serial killer suffering from a rare genetic mutation that slowly turned his body reptilian. But the psychological damage came first. Years of abuse, abandonment, and societal rejection created the monster before the scales ever showed up. Gotham made him. Nobody saved him, and that's the tragedy. He's dangerous up close, absolutely, but he's reactive, predictable, and completely incapable of threatening an entire city. No master plans, no army, just rage and teeth, which makes him containable. But containable doesn't mean harmless, and the next villain on this list proves that brains can be far more terrifying than brute force. Clayface. Imagine a villain who can become literally anyone. Your best friend, your partner, Batman himself. Now imagine that same villain can't even hold himself together long enough to use that power properly. That's Clayface. Basil Karlo first showed up way back in 1940, but the version most people know, the shape-shifting nightmare made of living clay, didn't fully take form until 1989, and his abilities are genuinely terrifying. He can absorb materials, mimic any person down to their voice, and infiltrate anywhere. On paper, he should be one of the most dangerous villains in Gotham. But here's the thing, he literally cannot maintain a permanent form. His body is in constant flux, his identity fractured across every face he's ever worn. He's not just unstable physically, he's unstable mentally. The more he shifts, the less of Basil Karlo actually remains. And that's what makes him tragic, in a way most rogues aren't. He's not choosing chaos, he is chaos, a walking body horror experiment who can't remember what his own face looks like. He ranks above Killer Croc because that shape-shifting versatility is on another level, but his inability to think long-term, to organize, to even exist consistently keeps him from ever being a top-tier threat. But if Clayface makes your skin crawl, wait until you meet a villain who gets inside your head without ever touching you. The Riddler, Edward Nygma, has a genius-level IQ of 190 plus. He's one of the smartest people in the entire DC universe, and he uses that intellect to tell Batman exactly what he's about to do before he does it, every single time. That's the Riddler's entire deal. First appearing in Detective Comics number 140 back in 1948, Nygma is a criminal mastermind with a compulsive psychological need to leave clues at his crime scenes. His brain literally won't let him commit a crime without announcing it first. It's like robbing a bank but emailing the police your full itinerary beforehand. He's appeared in over 150 comic issues and virtually every Batman adaptation, but his actual threat level is permanently capped by his own ego. Here's the thing, if Edward Nygma just stopped leaving riddles, he'd probably be the most dangerous villain in Gotham. No contest, but he can't. And that's what makes him both tragic and genuinely hilarious. Now, the 2022 film did something interesting. It stripped away the green suit and question marks and reimagined him as a radicalized, grounded threat. That version was terrifying precisely because he felt real. But in most incarnations, the Riddler is a genius who hands Batman the answer key to his own exam. But at least the Riddler only sabotages himself. The next villain on this list sabotages everyone around her, and she does it with a kiss. Catwoman. Calling Selina Kyle a villain is already a stretch, and honestly, that's what makes her so interesting. She debuted in Batman number 1 back in 1940 as the Cat, literally the same issue that introduced the Joker, and she's been impossible to pin down ever since. Here's the thing, Selina is a master-level martial artist, an elite acrobat, and one of the best thieves on the planet. She's genuinely dangerous, but she's never tried to blow up Gotham or poison the water supply. Her crimes are personal, targeted, and almost always victimless in the grand scheme of things. The real reason she's on this list isn't because of what she does to Gotham. It's because of what she does to Bruce Wayne. Depending on the storyline, she's a villain, an anti-hero, hero, or Batman's most significant love interest. Sometimes all three at once. She doesn't threaten the city. She threatens his focus, his judgment, his ability to stay detached. And that's why she ranks low on pure danger, but remains one of the most compelling characters in his entire rogues gallery. But speaking of compelling, the next villain on our list took the concept of tragedy and turned it into an entire identity. Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was never supposed to exist in comics. She was created in 1992 by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm for Batman, the animated series, making her one of the most successful reverse-engineered comic icons ever. A character born on television who conquered the page. Her real name is Harleen Quinzel, a psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum assigned to treat the Joker. He manipulated her, broke her down, and turned her into his partner in crime. Her origin is rooted in abuse, and that fuels an ongoing debate that the fan base still can't settle. Is she a victim or a villain? The answer, honestly, is both. Here's the thing. Since her 1993 comic debut in the Batman Adventures number 12, she's appeared in over 300 issues and spawned multiple solo series. She's more popular than most legacy characters who've been around since the 1940s, and the version of Harley that resonates most isn't the one standing behind the Joker, it's the one who walked away from him. Her threat level to Gotham is moderate. She's unpredictable and genuinely capable, but she's not planning citywide destruction. But if you think Harley's complicated, wait until you meet the villain who literally can't decide what he wants to be. Mr. Freeze. Most Batman villains want to watch the world burn. Victor Freeze just wants to save his wife. Here's the thing about Mr. Freeze. He debuted back in 1959 in Batman number 121 as a throwaway gimmick villain with an ice gun and zero depth. Nobody cared about him. He was filler. Then Batman. The animated series got a hold of him in the early 90s and completely reinvented everything. They gave him Nora, a terminally ill wife he'd preserved in cryogenic suspension, desperately searching for a cure while the world treated him like a monster. That backstory was so good, DC made it official canon. His suit keeps his body at negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit just to survive, and his cryogenic weaponry can freeze entire city blocks under the right conditions. He's a genuine physical threat, but his goals are never about power or destruction. Every crime he commits traces back to one woman, that's it. He's not trying to rule Gotham. He's not making a philosophical statement. He's a grieving husband with a freeze gun, and that makes him the one villain on this list where most people genuinely don't want him to lose. His threat ceiling stays moderate because his ambitions are so personal and narrow, but emotionally, he hits harder than almost anyone in the rogues gallery, and that emotional weight is about to look quaint compared to what comes next. Poison Ivy. Here's a question worth sitting with. Is Poison Ivy actually a villain? Because her entire motivation is protecting the environment, and honestly, she might have a point. Pamela Isley first showed up in Batman number 181 back in 1966, a botanist with a PhD in plant biology who gained the ability to control plant life and secrete mind-controlling pheromones and toxins. Her powers fluctuate wildly depending on who's writing her. Some versions keep it grounded in science. Others push her into near supernatural territory where she's basically a nature goddess. But here's the thing, either way, her power ceiling is deceptively high. A villain who can weaponize every plant in an entire urban ecosystem, that's not a minor threat. That's a potential extinction level event if she ever decided to stop holding back. But what truly separates Ivy from the rest of the rogues gallery is her why. She doesn't kill for power. She doesn't kill for profit. She doesn't kill for chaos. She kills to protect plant life. That gives her the most internally consistent ethical framework of anyone on this list. She's an eco-terrorist whose ideology genuinely resonates with a lot of people watching this right now. She lands in the middle of the rankings because her scope could theoretically be catastrophic, but her goals stay focused rather than apocalyptic. She's not trying to destroy Gotham. She's trying to save what's left of the natural world. Whether that makes her a villain or an activist is a conversation nobody in Batman's universe wants to have. But the next villain on this list, zero moral ambiguity whatsoever. The Penguin. Here's a guy with zero superpowers, zero fear toxin, zero shape-shifting abilities, and he still controls more of Gotham than almost anyone on this list. Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot has been running the game since 1941, debuting in Detective Comics number 58 and across 250 plus comics. He's built something scarier than any freeze gun or giant clay monster, an empire. The Penguin operates over 200 criminal criminal enterprises throughout Gotham, all funneled through his headquarters, the Iceberg Lounge. On the surface, it's a legitimate nightclub. Celebrities go there, politicians go there, and that's exactly the point. Every handshake in that building is a transaction. Every VIP table is a negotiation, and every favor gets called in eventually. He doesn't need to punch Batman. He needs a phone call. That's what makes him genuinely terrifying. You can lock up a guy with a gimmick, but dismantling an entire criminal infrastructure with political connections, legitimate business fronts, and layers of deniability, that's a different problem entirely. Fans split on whether he's a fallen aristocrat or a working class climber who clawed his way up, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Either version owns half the city. He's funny until you realize he might actually be untouchable. But speaking of untouchable, wait until you hear about a secret society that's been pulling Gotham's strings since before America even existed. Two-Face. Harvey Dent was supposed to save Gotham. That's the part that makes this one hurt. Before the acid, before the coin, before everything, he was the city's most celebrated prosecutor, a genuine white knight, the guy Batman believed could clean up Gotham through the legal system so he wouldn't have to do it with his fists. Then a mobster named Maroni threw acid at the left side of his face during a courtroom trial, and everything shattered. Here's the thing about Two-Face that separates him from every other villain on this list. He's not evil because he wanted power. He's not evil because he snapped from some philosophical crisis. One moment of violence took the best man in Gotham and broke him permanently. That's it. That's the entire tragedy. His coin flip decision making is simultaneously his most iconic trait and his most debated one. Some storylines treat it as genuinely supernatural. Others frame it as purely psychosomatic, a shattered mind clinging to the only structure it has left. Either way, the coin controls everything. Life, death, robbery, mercy, all reduced to a 50-50 chance. And don't mistake the coin for weakness. Two-Face runs organized crime operations responsible for over 100 deaths per year across canon storylines, not from super weapons or doomsday devices, from calculated, methodical criminal enterprise. He's a prosecutor who switched sides and brought every skill with him. Harvey Dent was almost the answer. That single detail makes him genuinely haunting. But if a fallen hero is tragic, wait until you meet a villain who turned fear itself into a weapon. Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane has been terrifying Batman since 1941, and after 200 plus comic issues across Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane has been terrifying Batman since 1941, and after 200 plus comic issues across more than 80 years, he's only gotten worse. Not because his fear toxin got stronger, because his reasoning got clearer. Here's what makes Scarecrow genuinely disturbing. He doesn't think he's a criminal. He thinks he's a doctor. Crane holds a PhD in psychology and genuinely believes his fear gas is therapeutic, that exposing people to their deepest terrors is a form of treatment. He's not cackling while Gotham burns, he's taking notes. That I'm helping you delusion elevates him above almost every other rogue. Most villains know they're villains. Crane thinks he's the only sane person in the room, and that conviction makes him unpredictable in ways pure chaos never could. But the real threat is scale. His fear toxin can incapacitate entire city blocks. One deployment turns Gotham's population against itself. Neighbors attacking neighbors, cops abandoning posts, infrastructure collapsing without a single bomb. That's one of the highest casualty multipliers in the entire Rogues Gallery, and he can do it with a canister. Christopher Nolan understood this. His grounded portrayal in the Dark Knight trilogy proved that psychological warfare at scale doesn't need to be fantastical to be devastating. It just needs the right delivery system and a man who believes he's doing God's work. A villain with a philosophical justification and a city-scale weapon is a different tier of threat entirely. But speaking of threats that operate on a massive scale, the next one doesn't just attack Gotham's mind. He wants to reshape the entire world. Deathstroke. Every other villain on this list has a reason, a grudge, a philosophy, a broken psyche, something that explains why they do what they do. Slade Wilson doesn't need a reason. He just needs a contract. Debuting in The New Teen Titans, number 2 in 1980, Deathstroke started as a military operative who volunteered for an experimental serum that enhanced his physical abilities to superhuman levels and unlocked 90% of his brain capacity. Speed, strength, reflexes, tactical processing, all of it cranked far beyond what any normal human could achieve. And then he became a mercenary. Here's what makes him terrifying. His contract kills success rate exceeds 95% across documented storylines. He doesn't monologue, he doesn't leave clues, he doesn't care about proving a point. He shows up, completes the objective, and leaves. That's the sharpest contrast with Batman. Bruce operates on an unbreakable moral code. No killing, no compromise, no exceptions. Deathstroke is entirely amoral. Anyone dies for the right price. There's no reasoning with that, no appealing to his humanity. He's not insane, he's not ideological, he's just lethally professional. His primary conflicts span the broader DC universe, not just Gotham. But every time he's been pointed at Batman or Gotham's infrastructure, The results are devastating, clinical, efficient, and that cold precision is arguably scarier than madness. But speaking of villains who blur the line between power and tragedy, the next one literally can't hold himself together. Court of Owls. Every villain on this list fights Batman. Court of Owls did something worse. They revealed he was never in charge. Introduced by Scott Snyder in 2011, the Court is a secret society that has controlled Gotham since 1609. That's before America even existed. Over 50 members deep, including politicians, judges, and business leaders, all backed by resurrected assassins called Talons, kept on ice and reanimated through a regenerative serum whenever the Court needs someone eliminated. But here's the thing, the Talons aren't even the scary part. The scary part is the realization. Batman spent years believing he was Gotham's protector, that he understood every shadow in this city. Then the Court pulls back the curtain and shows him that his entire crime fighting career had been observed, tolerated, and subtly shaped by an organization with centuries of infrastructure baked into Gotham's foundations. He wasn't the apex predator. He was a guest. That's what makes them rank this high. You can punch Bane. You can outsmart the Riddler. You can't punch a conspiracy out of a city's DNA. Systemic institutional corruption with 400 years of roots doesn't go down because one man in a cape found a hidden room. The board was never his to begin with. But if the Court controls Gotham from the shadows, the next villain controls something far more dangerous: Batman himself. Bane. Most people write Bane off as the big guy with the mask who punches hard. That's exactly what he wants you to think, because Bane's real weapon has never been his fists. It's his patience. Born in Peña Duro, a brutal prison on the Caribbean island of Santa Prisca, Bane spent the first 20 years of his life behind bars for a crime his father committed. He never saw the outside world, but instead of breaking, he built himself into something terrifying. He taught himself over 10 languages, plus several dead and arcane ones. He devoured every book he could find. He trained his body and his mind simultaneously, becoming one of the most dangerous intellects in the DC universe, all from inside a cell. Then came Venom, the experimental steroid that supercharges his strength to absolutely monstrous levels. But here's the thing, Bane didn't just juice up and charge at Batman. He spent months studying him first. Months. He analyzed Batman's psychology, his patrol routes, his fighting patterns, his emotional vulnerabilities. He mapped out every single limitation before throwing a single punch. And when he finally made his move in Nightfall, it was a masterpiece. He released every inmate from Arkham Asylum, forcing Batman to recapture them one by one over weeks. No sleep, no recovery, total exhaustion. And only then, when Batman could barely stand, did Bane walk into the Batcave and break his spine over his knee. That's not a fight, that's a campaign, and he won. But Bane's tactical brilliance still doesn't earn him the top spot, because the next villain didn't just beat Batman physically, they broke Gotham itself. Ra's al Ghul. Most Batman villains want to control Gotham. Ra's al Ghul wants to reset the entire planet. Created in 1971 by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams, Ra's has been alive for over 600 years, sustained by the Lazarus Pit, a mystical resource that literally reverses death, and he's the only one who controls it. While every other villain on this list is racing against a human lifespan, Ra's has centuries of patience. He doesn't need to rush. He can plan on a geological timescale. He commands the League of Assassins, a global network with thousands of trained operatives spread across every continent. This isn't a Gotham street gang. This is an army with infrastructure, ideology, and reach that makes every other villain's operation look like a lemonade stand. But here's what makes Ra's genuinely terrifying. His philosophy actually makes sense. Environmental collapse is real. Resource depletion is real. His solution, dramatic population reduction, to save the planet is horrifying, but it has internal logic. He's not crazy. He's calculated, and that's worse. Most remarkably, he doesn't want to destroy Batman. He wants to recruit him. Ra's considers Bruce his intellectual equal and has repeatedly offered him command of the entire league. That's not a threat you can punch your way out of. It's a philosophical argument disguised as a job offer, and Batman has to keep saying no to a man who might genuinely have a point about humanity's trajectory. That level of complexity is rare, but the villain sitting at the top of this list doesn't need complexity to be unforgettable. The Joker. He first appeared in Batman #1 in spring 1940, the same issue as Catwoman, and 85 years later, he's still the most terrifying villain in all of comics. Not because of his body count, although 600 plus confirmed kills across DC canon is staggering. Not because he paralyzed Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke, not because 6 different actors have brought him to life on the big screen since Cesar Romero first put on the makeup in 1966. He's #1 because of something far worse. You can't understand him. Every single villain on this list has a motive Batman can study, predict, and counter. Ra's al Ghul wants ecological balance. Bane wants to prove superiority. Two-Face is a slave to his coin, even Even the Court of Owls wants control. Goals, structure, logic. Batman can work with that. The Joker wants nothing. Here's the thing. DC Comics has deliberately, intentionally kept his origin story undefined. No confirmed name, no confirmed backstory, no confirmed reason for any of it. He's told multiple origin stories himself and laughed at every single one. That's not lazy writing. That's the point. You cannot profile a man with no past. You cannot predict a man with no goal. You cannot bargain with someone who doesn't want anything you have. His entire philosophy boils down to one idea. Civilization is a joke, and all it takes is one bad day to prove it. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want Gotham. He doesn't want to rule anything. He wants to watch the world admit that order was always an illusion. 6 actors, 85 years, 0 confirmed backstory. Every other villain on this list has a weakness Batman can exploit. The Joker's weakness doesn't exist, and that's exactly why he's number 1. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.